The first time there was a full television broadcast was in 1928. The Queen's Messenger by J. Harley Manners was a dramatic adaptation of a radio drama. It was displayed on 3-inch screens, and the broadcast was limited to just the city of Schenectady, New York. I bring this up to make the point that, obviously, TV has come a long way. Technology improves, trends in how stories are told come and go, and even how we consume it has evolved. So, with all of those elements to look at across the 95 years of broadcast television, the only thing I want to talk about, the one thing I find more important than any other, is how the episode opens. Okay, not really, but it is something that I think about a lot, so I'm going to do this anyways. Let's do this. Do you like TV? Yeah. Me too. At this point, people consume more seasons of television in a single weekend than most families did in the 50s in their entire year. Don't fact check me on that, it's a made up figure. As I said in the intro, there has been a long history of television, and with that, there has been a lot of changes in how TV shows are introduced. What I want to do in this video is take us, yes us, we're in this together now, through that history. Look at how things have changed from the early days until now in our modern streaming era, and discuss these differences because I think this is interesting, and you do too now. I hope. Please watch this video. In all honesty though, I do think that how TV shows are introduced is an important part of the history of television. It says a lot about TV and how we as consumers engage with it. But before I get into that, there's something else I want to talk about first. I want to talk a bit about how openings were done in films because I think that is an important stepping stone to where we are now. They share a similar history in a lot of ways, mirroring each other up to a certain point. That said, this is going to be a very quick rundown because Patrick Willems did a fantastic video on this subject like a year or so ago on his channel that is very in-depth, and honestly, I'm just going to be saying and paraphrasing a lot of the same things he did, so just go watch his video if you're interested in that while I move on with this. Film credits, as they began, were static images that played as the curtains opened, essentially creating the shift between pre-show and picture. But then everything changed when Saul Bass started to work with Otto Preminger. It was no longer just about being a shifting point, but it was a way to get into the mood of the film. On his work designing opening title sequences, Saul Bass said,
"I saw the title as a way of conditioning the audience, so that when the film actually began, viewers would already have an emotional resonance to it."
And this is a point that I think really matters, not only for film, but for television as well. Keep that in mind, because it's my entire talking point. The early days of TV were pretty simple. Opening credits were fairly simple. Just a quick way to credit a lead actor or two, and sometimes a sponsor. Because yes, the episodes themselves would have sponsors. Kind of like YouTube videos now. I would have put a fake ad here, but I didn't. These early openings would usually have just a little jingle or something to go along with the visuals, because static images played over silence would be insane. Think of shows like I Love Lucy or that little jingle that plays at the beginning of the Andy Griffith Show. So it really didn't take long for things to build from there, to go from quick little jingles that just mentioned an actor or two, to more elaborate ones where you wanted to credit more actors, give them more of that shine, which would lead these jingles into the 70s and 80s were a great time for theme songs. They took what the early jingles already gave us, a catchy way to set the feel of the show, and cranked it way up. Oftentimes these themes would sing the premise of the show, so that way if it was your first episode, you could get the premise and not have to worry about catching up. This to me mirrors the great opening credits to films. They took what would be a simple way to credit the cast and crew and use it to get you into the right mood for the show you're about to watch. And just like how TV shows were smaller in scale and budgets than film, the intros were also simpler. You get Danny Tanner smiling to camera instead of some dope Kyle Cooper work. But stuff like that works for the home screens, especially the smaller ones of that era. And I'm sure we all have our favorites, that's not a question. Even introductions that were just instrumentals became catchy music connected to the show. Something like the Twin Peaks theme that will definitely get stuck in my head if I were to play it here. Some themes are so iconic that just seeing the visuals that go with them will put that music in your head. Opening credits eventually got so bloated with huge ensemble casts and creators getting credits that it eventually became a statement to move away from them. Lost, a show that was groundbreaking at its premiere, only had a 15-second musical cue that played while only the title appeared on screen. That's it. And you see that effect on the shows that came after it. Heroes, or even all the way to Breaking Bad, just had these short stingers at the beginning. It makes sense, our attention span as fans were shorter. We want to jump right into the action, not wait around for it to start. If you're singing about your show, I'm going to be flipping around and see if another show is already going. That's the world that these shows lived in. It wasn't where you had 2 or 3 channels and that's what you were stuck with. There were dozens. The way shows were being distributed changes, and in the same vein, how the shows were presenting themselves were changing. And again, there's a parallel to film. Look at something like a Christopher Nolan film that just has that quick name at the front, credits at the end. It's the same thing. You know, it's crazy how the two industries have strayed off from each other in so many ways, but are still pretty much the same when you think about it. And honestly, that could have been it for longer TV show intros if it weren't for... And yeah, I know that other networks at the time were also pumping out longer, stylish intros as well. But I do think that Mad Men and the stuff Showtime was doing was working off of that HBO model. Not just how every show is about a violent anti-hero we root for even though they do bad things, but how they present their shows. The intros on HBO lead the charge on stylish intros and not caring how long they are. Look at Game of Thrones. That opening intro was almost 2 minutes long and people praised it when it came out. Around the last season of that show, when it had gone downhill, I heard people saying, well, at least the intro is still great. I think a lot of prestige TV is just based on HBO, so it makes a lot of sense that in that post-Lost boom, we'd be gravitating back towards what they're doing on their network. And this ties into our current era of TV, Golden Age, Third Golden Age, or whatever you want to call it, really feels like long-form films in terms of scope and scale. I would definitely say that Boardwalk Empire and Taxi Driver's opening credits both do excellent jobs conveying their tones, and not just because of Martin Scorsese's involvement. Although that helps, he is after all the GOAT. Now you may remember the text on the thumbnail if I made the thumbnail the way I pictured it when I'm writing this. Yeah, I didn't do that thing I thought I was going to do for the thumbnail, but this part is where I'm segueing to talking about Netflix, so... Logo. Netflix is an interesting point in this story because of one simple feature, the skip. They knew people wanted to binge the shows they had and wanted to do it faster and faster. To the point where it became part of their business model, and that's why they're canceling as many shows as they are, is because they're not being binged to their liking. But they knew people wanted to binge, so they made it easy, a one-click button to skip over the non-essential part of the show to get to the show. No more fast-forwarding and worried that you went past it and have to go back. Simple, easy. And that's the real diversion point from films. When you go to a theater, you can't skip past the beginning, unless you show up late, but that is not an intended feature of going to the cinema. What I find funny is with Netflix giving that feature, that pioneering skip button that now exists on most of the streaming platforms that we have, they were giving audiences that option, but they weren't just cutting out everything like you see with like the Lost intro. Like, they're still making banger intros. You know, just look at something like Stranger Things. It is great. They have some excellent intros on shows on their platform. Tons of great intros, from Mindhunter to The Dragon Prince, Grace and Frankie, intros that perfectly set the tone of their shows. A personal favorite of mine is for the series Dark. Just look at how beautiful it is, and it changes every season while still reflecting the overall vibe and tone of the show. Wonderful. And I do find it funny that Netflix is both giving us the tool to skip away from the intros while also making some of the best, most artistic and atmospheric ones. Really shows how they play to all crowds, those who want intros and those who don't. And we see that with the creators behind the shows as well, because there are some shows that still do that quick title card a la Lost, and that's fine. No platform has a uniform way of beginning its episodes. It varies from show to show, as it should. Now all we need is to get Netflix to actually keep the shows that they're making going long enough that they can have satisfying conclusions. Am I right? Of course I am. We're all thinking it. Anyways, that's not the point of this video. End the video now, Greg. That's a note, not part of the script. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel like a few years ago I had made this exact video, but shorter, no you don't. You don't think that at all. I'm just kidding. This actually was a video I made when I first started my channel, but I feel like I was better able to express it now, so I just wanted to give the old remake thing. So if you've seen both versions of this video, let me know which one was better. And if you haven't, go in the comments, talk about intros, your favorite, do you skip, do you not, all that stuff. Drive my engagement. Leave me a like, share this video. I don't mention that a lot, but if you like this video, or any of my videos, share it. If you like any videos on YouTube, share it, because it's a great way to help the creators that you like get to make stuff for a bigger and bigger audience. I got social media links in my description. I've got more videos that'll be popping up on screen, and until next time, have a good one.